I'm now going to continue my video series on Henry Ward Beecher and his sermons by giving you the definition of the word concord. Now, many people know what the word discord means, but very few people know what the word concord means. So what is the meaning of the word concord? Well, a cappella groups know what the word concord means. I can assure you of that. Ask the vocal group, the New Seekers, what the word concord means. They will easily tell you what that definition is. And what is that definition? It's harmony. It's the exact opposite of discord. That's what it is. Now, people often tell you that they hate lies, but when you tell them the truth about something that they don't want to hear, watch what happens to your friendship with them. Did David enjoy what Nathan told him about his relationship with Bathsheba? I don't think so. But Nathan was a real friend to David, and he was following the instructions of God. And sometimes real friends have to tell you the truth, even if you don't want to hear what they have to say. I mean, think about it. Does anyone want their friends telling them that they are addicted to alcohol? Not really. But if you really care about a friend, you have to tell them the truth no matter what the cost is. Otherwise, you're not a real friend. Think about this for a second. Saul was often angered at Samuel when Samuel told him he had done something outside the will of God. Yet it was this same Saul who actually sought out a witch to communicate with Samuel. Now, Samuel had already perished, but Saul hadn't yet. So Saul sought out a witch to communicate with Samuel from beyond the grave. And he did this before Saul perished. Okay? Now, your friends may not like what you may have to tell them, but if they are really your friend, they won't toss you under a bus just because you told them something they didn't want to hear. And if they do toss you under a bus, they weren't really your friend to begin with. I promise you that. Okay. In our society today, honest people are rarely valued. Very few people value virginity. People will act very righteously in church, but then act like used car salesmen outside of church. Real Christians value honor, purity, and fidelity. Think about it. How many people are a part of a church choir, but they never give thanks to God about the meals they eat, either at home or at a restaurant? Talk about a contradiction. Or how about a better word for that? It's called an oxymoron. Ever heard of an oxymoron? You should look it up. That's right, folks. When you stand there and you sing in a church choir, but you never pray over any meals you ever eat, whether you're in your house or outside the house, what's that say? All right. People often confuse the Christian terms of mildness, gentleness, and meekness with being a pansy or being emotionless. Let me clarify Christian mildness, gentleness, and meekness. Now, Christians can gently tell someone that they refuse to read the Satanic Bible. Okay, if somebody presents you with a copy of the Satanic Bible, you can say, hey, look, if you want to read that, that's your choice. I won't condone it. I won't read it. But you can do whatever you want with it. That's your choice. Okay? Just because I don't condone it doesn't mean that you can, if you want to do it, that's your problem. But I'm not going to condone you reading it, nor am I going to read it myself. The end. Okay? Christians can refuse to apply for a job at a casino even if there is no other job available to them. They're honoring their Christian values. They're not telling you not to work at a casino. They're just simply saying, we refuse to work at a casino because we respect our Christian values. The end. Even if that means starving to death. Christians can refuse to allow underage people to consume alcohol in their homes. They can say, look, you may consume that alcohol, which I do not condone at all. And I will do everything I can to stop you from doing that. But at a certain point, if you go off to Timbuktu land in some mountainous area and you start drinking and I happen not to be there, there's not really a whole heck of a lot I can do about it. But you're not doing it in my house, and you're not going to use my money to buy that alcohol to consume. Not going to happen. You want to do it, you're going to have to do it someplace else. You're going to have to find some other way to get it. because you're not getting it from me. Now, that's not being mean about it. That's just simply saying, those are the facts. Fact, you're not consuming alcohol in my house. 2, you're not using my money to buy alcohol. Not going to happen. End of story. We're not being mean about it. We're not degrading the person because they're consuming alcohol. We're just saying it's not going to be us that's going to help them do it. Christians can publicly take stands on issues that violate Christian principles. You can hold up and pick a side all you want. You can distribute literature if you'd like. You just don't have to be nasty about it. Say, look, we don't like this policy. The end. See? A Christian can abhor violence yet stand on his principles. I don't believe in violence, but there are things I do believe in. It is so easy to hate someone because they involve themselves in evil deeds. It is more difficult to care and pity someone who involves themselves in evil deeds and still despise the deeds they are committing. Remember, they may know what they are doing, but they may not know the ramifications of the deeds they are involved with. Well, let me give you an example. And I'm going to give you more than one. Many thieves know they are placing their victims into a dire financial situation. I mean, you steal out of somebody's house, that person you're stealing from, well, they got to replace all the things you just stole at a considerable cost to themselves. See what I mean? But they may not realize that these victims often become homeless beggars. Let me tell you something. When you have to refurbish your house, your insurance goes up, your bills go up, whole 9 yards. It's costing them time and money to replace everything you stole. At a certain point, it may break their bank, and they may end up becoming homeless, all because of the thief. So this starts a domino effect. Now, those people that have now become homeless were once productive members of society. They had a job. They lost their job because they lost their house. A lot of people, when they hire someone, they have to have a physical address for them in order to pay them. If they don't have a physical address, they can't pay them. See what I mean? So now, the people that were once productive members of society, they're not productive members of society anymore. So the employer loses an employee. But it gets worse. Because if these thieves are not just stealing from individuals, but they're also stealing from businesses, then the businesses have to invest in more anti-theft devices. They have to pay more insurance on their buildings, because they have to pay insurance for the theft that's going on. Prices go up, whole 9 yards. Like I said, it just starts a massive domino effect. Taxes go up. How does taxes go up because of a thief? Well, I'll tell you how that happens. Because when people become unemployed because they lose their homes, and now they are homeless beggars, then these homeless people can't pay taxes. And if they can't pay taxes, the businesses get taxed more. So the businesses, they have a rise in their taxes, a rise in their insurance, a rise in their prices, because now they have to get better anti-theft devices, and they have to find somebody to hire, and the people available, that pool of people available becomes smaller and smaller. It becomes quite a nightmare for the businesses. And eventually the costs just get too darn high, and then the businesses just have to shut down. So in the end, you say, well, how does that affect the thief? If the business is shut down and the people become homeless, who's the thief going to steal from now? Ever think about it? It's the domino effect. Eventually, the thieves will run out of people to steal from because they'll have nobody left. But it gets worse. Because then the homeless people try to steal from the very thieves that stole from them. At the very least, the homeless people are now trying to track down the thieves to get their stuff back, which causes an aggravation for the thief. End of story. So in the end, the thief ultimately pays the price for his crimes. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually he does. Think about this for a second. Police officers are usually there to help you. You really want these police officers to be upset? What if you got into a terrible situation? What if somebody, let's say you're a thief and then somebody starts stealing from you? Well, who are you going to turn to when somebody starts stealing from you? Can't turn to the cops because you're a thief. See what I mean? If a thief gets mugged on the street, who does he turn to get help? Doesn't work that way. All right. There is a difference between having pity for someone who involves themselves in evil deeds and condoning those evil deeds. I do pity people who convince themselves that the only way to deal with the problems in their life is to consume large quantities of alcohol. I pity people like that. I'm thinking to myself, man, how did you get in that kind of situation to begin with? But I don't serve them alcohol. Whether they think they need it or not, I don't serve them alcohol. And I don't let them drive their vehicles while intoxicated. I do everything I possibly can to prevent them from driving their vehicles while intoxicated, because I know they're going to create more harm than what they're doing to themselves. And that's never a good thing. I pity lazy people, but I don't condone their laziness. And I certainly don't condone people that become Minnie the Moochers. I just don't. And I'll tell you, no one abhors evil more than the mother of a child, especially if she sees that evil is consuming the life of her child. Mothers will go to any length to purge evil from the lives of their children. Name one mother who wouldn't sacrifice their entire life savings if they thought it would purge alcoholism from the life of any of their children. Another group of people who would make such sacrifices are loving spouses. Name one loving wife or husband who wouldn't sacrifice everything they have just to keep their partners from becoming unfaithful. They'd do it in a heartbeat. Why do people participate in evil activities? Well, there's all kinds of reasons, but I'll cover some in particular. Let's take for instance the person who lives in a very small town where employment opportunities are small. These people know that their social life is practically non-existent. They feel sure they will never find a decent spouse or participate in the upbringing of any children. They express their feelings to a local minister or to a local Christian, only to find out that this particular minister or this Christian cares more about what people are placing in a church's offering plate than in the problems of the person that has just sought out their advice, or their counsel, as you would like to call it. How many ministers or just other Christians have just slapped books into the hands of people that are in desperate situations? And then they go to the extra and say, you know, these Christians or ministers will stand there and say, hey, this book I'm giving to you is going to solve all your problems. Well, sometimes it does, but more often than not, it won't. Either the desperate person cannot read the book, or he cannot comprehend the concepts in the book. So how does that help them? Where's their assistance now? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Okay. So, what happens to this person if they can't comprehend the concepts of the book, or they can't simply read it? I'll tell you what happens to them. They become more friendless and more impoverished. They end up in a worse shape than they were before they met you. Think about it. So in that case, why wouldn't this person commit adultery? Why wouldn't this person consume intoxicating substances? Why wouldn't this person steal valuables from others? I'm not trying to justify the desperate person's actions. I'm just saying that he has understandable reasons for doing what he's doing, because you let him down. And I can truly comprehend why they are so angered at ministers and other Christians who just slap books in their hands. That wasn't helpful at all, I can tell you that. You people could have assisted them, but you brushed them off. That's wrong. And God doesn't condone that. You always say, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus... I saw that all the time, this campaign, WWJD, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? What did he do in 3 years of ministry? He taught. That's what he did. He didn't slap a book in your hands and say, take off. He taught. Word of mouth. So ask yourself this question. What is the greater crime? The crime committed by the desperate person who became a thief or an adulterer or the town drunk. Was that the greater crime? Or was it the crime of indifference that was committed by the minister or the Christian who just slapped a book in this desperate person's hand and said, take off? It was the crime of indifference that was the greater crime. Sure, the other person committed crimes, but you committed the greater crime. And God holds you more responsible than he does that other guy. That's right. You can be held responsible for his actions because you could have done something and you didn't. Think about that. And God can hold you accountable for that. Don't test him to find out. So what happens to ministers or any Christians who commit the crime of indifference? Well, God could very easily unemploy you. He sees the desperate person floundering in the ocean. He knows that person came to you for assistance and you flushed him away. You know what God can do to you? He can put you in the same water and say, well, you can flounder with the guy. He's going down and you're going with him. He can do that. God's very capable of doing things like that. Remember what happened to King Saul. God allowed King Saul to rule over the Israelites. When King Saul disobeyed God enough times, God removed Saul from his throne. He removed his whole family from the throne. And if God will do that to King Saul, guess what he'll do to you? Especially if you commit the crime of indifference. So why do some of these people participate in evil activities even though they know these activities are causing detrimental harm to them? It's because they have developed a tolerance to the consequences of their evil activities. Let me give you an example of that. The first time you get massively intoxicated, you go to the bathroom, your stomach gets upset, you hurl, okay? You think, oh, I'll never do that again. Well, after about the 6th or 7th time of doing that, you say, you know what? I'm expecting the headache. I'm expecting the stomach upset. So, you just become indifferent to it. That's why. You can administer corporal punishment to a child when they become mischievous, but if you administer it too many times, the child will become immune to the corporal punishment. Then you have to create a more effective form of punishment for your mischievous child. This can become quickly frustrating. Now you're reading a whole ton of parenting books to see how you can get your kids all straightened out. I say use corporal punishment very sparingly, because if you don't, there you go. Let me give you another example. When people initially contract an infectious bacteria, they consume antibiotics to counteract the bacteria. But if the bacteria develops a tolerance to antibiotics, then the medical community has to develop a new form of antibiotics to counteract the bacteria. That can become frustrating and life-threatening. Getting my point? Now, sometimes communities can be slowly corrupted by evil. First, people are told that all illegal narcotic merchants should be confined to a penal colony. Then a psychologist suddenly comes along and says, well, they aren't the worst people in the world. Let's try to rehabilitate them. Remember, God is love, and we should show these people the love of God. Well, that sounds to me like a warped interpretation of biblical passages. Have we so quickly forgotten the temptation Satan presented to Jesus in the wilderness? So the courts order these illegal narcotic merchants to perform community service and pay a fine. Some of them reform, some do not. The other ones that don't return to their former occupations. When the people who don't reform are arrested again, do our courts place them in a penal colony? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Oh, we should just give them one more chance. They aren't the worst people in the world. Well, it isn't long before these people persuade their representatives to legalize the sale and consumption of illegal intoxicating substances. Community chaos slowly ensues. I mean, just look at the story of Moses at Mount Sinai. How long did it take the people at the base of Mount Sinai to create a golden calf to worship? Didn't take them long. Remember, all alcoholics were created by consuming one alcohol-laced beverage. After the first one, they got to the second, they got to the third, and after a while, there you go. People can lie to themselves. Oh, I can handle alcohol, they tell themselves and everyone around them as they consume their next beverage. I'm not kidding you. Go to any bar, and you're going to find at least one person standing there saying, oh, I can control this alcohol, and they're consuming their next drink while they're telling you this. After a while, you begin to realize they really can't. Some people can, these people can't. Now, there is a difference between Christian forgiveness and Christian tolerance. We can forgive a bully in school for his horrible acts, but we must not tolerate his horrible acts. We should never condone the acts of a bully. We should never sit idly by and say nothing while the bully continues to commit his horrible acts. If we do, we are telling everyone that we condone his acts. This is also true of people in the public eye. We should never tolerate evil acts of politicians, motion picture stars, and television stars, and sports players. This is also true of people who aren't in the public eye. Would you really stand by and do nothing about a used car salesman who continues to fraudulently sell automobiles that should never be operated again? Should good shepherds be allowed to become indifferent to education needs of their flocks? How many school shootings will this nation endure before shepherds start competing with the current educational system? And I'm talking about the National Education Association. We should be their greatest competitors. Are we? No. But we should be. I, for one, am not sitting by the sidelines. I'm their greatest competition right now. And I intend to stay that way. We should replace Common Core with common sense. Now, I'm telling you, many shepherds spend their days reading their Bibles, but do they ever read their newspapers? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Do they formulate their God-filled messages around current events that they read in their newspapers? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Henry Ward Beecher did. Charles Spurgeon did. Jesus did. Why aren't we? And when they do they formulate the correct messages? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. My message to you today is this. Shepherds, don't wait until the school system stops the bullying situation in the schools. They've had plenty of time to counteract the bullying. Think about it. It all started back in Jonesboro, Arkansas. How much more time do they need to counteract this bullying situation? How many more school shootings do we need to see before we do something about it? Stop with the picket signs. That's not solving anything. I'll tell you the correct solution. Shepherds, open the old textbooks. Open the Federalist Papers. Open the FASBs, the Financial Accounting Standard Board publications. Open up the old accounting books. Open up Euclid's Elements. Open up Rene Descartes. Start teaching the kids in your school, in your churches. Let me tell you something. Less than 200 years ago, you had a church, and it ran as a church on Sunday and a school the rest of the week. Why aren't we doing that today? We should be. We really should be. Drop the picket signs. Let me tell you something. You want... Now listen to me. There are young ladies out there that go around and they say, "Oops, I made a mistake. I had a baby." It wasn't a mistake. It was a baby. You want that to stop? Get the young ladies in the churches before they do anything like that and say, we're raising your self-esteem so that doesn't happen anymore. Drop your picket signs and start forming neighborhood watches. You want violence against women to drop? Form neighborhood watches from your church. Stop it there. See what I mean? You want women to have real rights? Start in the church house. Start educating. Run adult ed in the church house. Say, well, our church houses aren't big enough. Well, then buy a shopping mall. Find a shopping center, buy it out, and run an educational center and a church from there. If you have low-cost education, it'd be better to do that, knowing you're improving your community, than to let this nightmare go on. To let this nightmare persist is ridiculous. Like I say, get rid of the picket signs. You don't need them. You want to train up politicians? Do it in the church house. You train up the politicians, and then you send them on their way. Say, look, we're sending you to Congress. We're training you here. You go to Congress. You start solving our problems. Start your education in the church house. Open the old textbooks. Open the Federalist Papers. Tell them what rights they have. A lot of the people don't even know what rights they have because they've never been told that. You tell them. You prepare your sermons on Saturdays and prepare your lessons on Mondays. And start teaching. Start teaching adult ed. If you can't hammer the kids, get adult ed started up. There are plenty of young people between 18 and 25 that need this kind of adult ed. I can't do everything for you. You do it. That's my message to the shepherds. Compete with the National Education Association. Show them up. That's what I say. You want to stop the problems? You stop them there. Well, that's all I've got to say for this evening. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down here below. I will tell you more in a future video, so I want you to stay tuned.